The space around the Zorvak armada began to shimmer like heated air rising from summer pavement, reality itself bending as thousands of human vessels transitioned from quantum possibility into physical existence. What had appeared to be empty void suddenly erupted with the angular silhouettes of warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, their hulls gleaming with exotic materials that seemed to drink in light and transform it into something entirely different. Captain Alex. Rivers felt the familiar sensation of transitioning back into normal space-time as his ship, the HDF Retribution, decloaked among hundreds of other vessels that had been waiting in dimensional storage for this exact moment. The human fleet was not just larger than the aliens had expected, it was fundamentally different from anything they understood about space combat, built using principles that challenged the basic assumptions of galactic warfare. The Zorvak sensors went wild as their targeting computers tried to process what they were seeing. Ships appeared and disappeared from their screens, existing in multiple locations simultaneously before resolving into single targets that moved in ways that violated the known laws of physics. The human vessels seemed to slide between dimensions, appearing to occupy several positions at once before snapping into focus at coordinates that should have been impossible to reach. Warlord Thexavar stared at his tactical display in growing confusion as his fleet found itself surrounded by enemies that had materialized from nowhere. His intelligence reports had assured him that humanity possessed fewer than 50 combat vessels in total, all of them inferior to even the oldest ships in his armada. Instead, he now faced a force that outnumbered his own fleet by more than 10 to 1, equipped with technology that his sensors could barely detect. The first Zorvak dreadnought opened fire with plasma cannons that could melt through the armor of any known starship, weapons that had reduced human colonies to ash for 3 years of conflict. The brilliant energy beams lanced across space toward the nearest human vessel, a sleek destroyer that made no attempt to evade the incoming fire. The aliens watched in satisfaction as their weapons struck their target with enough energy to vaporize a small moon. The plasma beams passed through the human ship like light through clear water, the energy dissipating, harmlessly as dimensional shielding technology bent space itself around the vessel. Dr. Rachel Kim's theoretical work on quantum mechanics had been transformed into practical defensive systems that made conventional weapons nearly useless, creating protective fields that existed partially outside normal space-time, where enemy fire could not reach. Commander Tony Rodriguez activated the weapon systems aboard his stealth destroyer Phantom, a vessel that had been designed to test the absolute limits of human engineering capability. His ship did not simply become invisible to sensors, it actually stepped outside of reality itself, existing in a quantum superposition that allowed it to attack from angles that had no meaning in three-dimensional space. The Zorvak cruiser that Tony targeted simply ceased to exist. Its atoms scattered across multiple dimensions as the Phantom's quantum disruptor fired from a position that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. The alien vessel did not explode or break apart. It simply stopped being present in this universe, leaving behind only empty space where a 1,000-meter warship had been moments before. Admiral Helen Brooks commanded the carrier Valkyrie, a ship that launched not traditional fighter craft, but something far more sophisticated and terrifying. The drone swarms that emerged from her launch bays were controlled by artificial intelligence systems that could think and adapt faster than any organic mind, each individual unit capable of independent tactical decisions, while remaining connected to a collective consciousness that treated the entire battlefield as a single, unified puzzle to solve. The Zorvak pilots found themselves facing opponents that could predict their moves before they made them, artificial minds that processed information at speeds that made combat reflexes irrelevant. The alien fighters were fast and well-armed, but they were piloted by biological creatures with reaction times measured in fractions of seconds, while their human opponents operated at the speed of pure thought. Commander Lisa Grant piloted an experimental fighter called the Wraith, a single-person craft that demonstrated humanity's mastery of personal combat technology. Her ship could phase between dimensions at will, allowing her to strike from angles that violated the enemy's understanding of space-time geometry. She appeared inside the bridge of a Zorvak cruiser, delivered a payload that turned the ship's own power systems against itself, and vanished again before the aliens could even understand what had happened. The Kythera collective monitoring stations throughout the sector transmitted emergency reports as their Observers realized that humanity had somehow advanced their technology by what should have been millions of years in just 3 years of conflict. Captain Eric Stone broadcast on all frequencies, his message reaching every alien listening, post within 50 light years as he delivered an explanation that would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned to fear humanity. The battle that had begun as a simple extermination operation became a demonstration of human capabilities that redefined what was possible in galactic warfare. Zorvak vessels that had seemed invincible found themselves helpless against weapons and defenses that operated according to principles their scientists had never imagined. Ships that had conquered 17 civilizations were reduced to drifting hulks by opponents they could barely detect. Colonel Maya Patel led boarding parties that captured Zorvak vessels from the inside, her Marines moving through alien ships with augmentations that pushed human physical capabilities beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. Her soldiers were faster, stronger, and more adaptable than the aliens had thought possible, equipped with genetic and cybernetic enhancements that made them into living weapons capable of operating in any environment. The Veltar Empire attempted to use their psychic abilities to influence human minds, confident that their mental powers would allow them to turn the battle in favor of their Zorvak allies. Instead, they discovered that humanity had developed not just resistance to mental intrusion, but the ability to reflect psychic attacks back at their sources with amplified force, turning the aliens' greatest strength into a weapon against themselves. Admiral Susan Cross stood perfectly still as the massive Zorvak armada dropped out of hyperspace in a display of raw power that would have terrified any normal opponent. 200 alien warships emerged from the swirling portal of twisted spacetime, their hulls bristling with enough firepower to reduce entire star systems to cosmic dust. The largest vessels were over 2 miles long, floating fortresses that dwarfed anything humanity had ever publicly revealed to the galaxy. The bridge of the EFS Constitution was quiet, except for the soft hum of systems that the aliens thought they understood completely. Susan had commanded this ship for 2 years, fighting a careful campaign of managed defeats that had convinced the Zorvaks they were facing a desperate enemy. Every battle had been choreographed to reveal just enough human capability to seem realistic, while hiding the true extent of their technological advancement. The Constitution itself was a masterpiece of deception, built to look like humanity's most advanced warship while actually being little more than an elaborate stage prop. Its weapons were real, but deliberately limited. Its shields were functional, but designed with obvious weaknesses, and its hull was constructed to appear impressive while concealing the fact that it was essentially a mobile theater for the performance that had fooled an entire galaxy. Warlord. Thexavar opened communications from his flagship, a vessel so large that it cast shadows over the smaller ships in his fleet. The alien commander had been looking forward to this moment for months, the final opportunity to crush what remained of human resistance and claim their territory for the Zorvak hegemony. His species had conquered 17 different civilizations over the past century, and humans would simply be number 18 on a long list of defeated enemies. The warlord expected to receive humanity's surrender, but instead Susan delivered a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Her voice was calm and steady as she spoke words that had been carefully chosen to mark the end of humanity's greatest deception and the beginning of their true revelation to the cosmos. Captain Ben Taylor monitored communications from his position aboard the scout ship Mercury, watching as Zorvak intelligence officers congratulated themselves on their complete understanding of human capabilities. For 2 years, Ben had been the architect of an information warfare campaign that had convinced the aliens they knew everything about human technology, strategy, and military strength. Every classified document they had stolen, every secret base they had discovered, and every advanced weapon they had encountered had been carefully planned elements of an elaborate fiction. The false intelligence network that Ben had constructed was so sophisticated that it included fake research facilities, staged equipment failures, and even actors playing the roles of discouraged human scientists. Zorvak spies had infiltrated what they thought were real human installations, only to steal information that had been specifically prepared for them to find. The aliens believed they had broken human security when in reality they had been fed exactly what humanity wanted them to know. Lieutenant, Commander Sarah Martinez watched her tactical displays with satisfaction as the Zorvac fleet arranged itself in exactly the formation that human strategists had predicted. The aliens had positioned their most powerful ships in the center of their formation, surrounded by lighter vessels that they expected would be sufficient to handle any remaining human resistance. Their confidence was so complete that they had not even bothered to scout the surrounding space for potential threats. What the Zorvacs did not realize was that they had never actually fought a real human warship. Every vessel they had encountered in 3 years of conflict had been either a converted civilian transport with basic weapons or a purpose-built decoy designed to test alien capabilities, while revealing nothing important about human technology. The merchant ships they had destroyed had been filled with obsolete equipment and volunteers who understood the importance of maintaining the deception. The military vessels they had defeated had been crewed by actors following carefully written scripts. The real human defense fleet had been under construction for over a decade, built in facilities that no alien sensor had ever detected and equipped with technology that would have been incomprehensible to the species that thought they had already defeated humanity. While the Zorvacs had been fighting humanity's theatrical troupe, real human engineers had been developing weapons and defenses that operated on principles the galaxy had never imagined. Possible Dr. Amanda Walsh received the final confirmation. The Project Looking Glass was ready to proceed. Her team had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, developing not just new technology but entirely new ways of thinking about warfare and defense. The quantum computers hidden beneath Luna's surface had run millions of simulations, testing every possible outcome and refining humanity's strategy until it was perfect. The space around the Zorvac armada appeared empty to their sensors, but Amanda knew that thousands of human vessels waited in quantum superposition, existing in a state between reality and possibility until the moment they chose to reveal themselves. The technology that made this possible was based on principles that the galaxy's greatest scientists considered theoretical curiosities, rather than practical applications. Admiral Cross opened a channel to Luna Base and spoke the "Hey" words that would begin humanity's true introduction to galactic civilization. The message was simple but carried the weight of 3 years of careful preparation and sacrifice. Every human who had died maintaining the deception, every colony that had been abandoned to preserve the secret, and every defeat that had been carefully orchestrated was about to be vindicated. The Zorvacs prepared to begin what they expected would be a routine extermination, their weapons charging and their targeting systems locking onto the small collection of human ships that represented the last organized resistance in this sector of space. They had no idea that they were about to participate in the most significant military engagement in galactic history, one that would redefine the balance of power throughout the known universe and establish humanity as the dominant force in this region of space. Jake Morrison stared at the burning wreckage of the ESV Phoenix as it tumbled through space like a broken toy. 3 years ago, he had been so excited about humanity's first contact with alien life. Now he watched another human ship die under alien weapons and felt only cold anger. The Zorvac battleship that had destroyed the Phoenix hung in space like a metal shark, its dark hull gleaming with weapon ports that could turn any human vessel into scrap metal in seconds. The Zorvacs had made their message clear from the very first meeting. Humans were nothing more than insects to be stepped on. When Jake had tried to establish peaceful contact with their fleet, they had responded by vaporizing 2 escort ships without even bothering to communicate first. The aliens seemed to view the destruction of human vessels as casual entertainment, like a child burning ants with a magnifying glass. Commander Lisa Carter felt the deck vibrate under her feet as another plasma blast struck her ship's shields. The ESV Guardian was one of the newer human vessels, but against Zorvac technology it might as well have been made of paper. She had been defending the Kepler colony for 8 months now, fighting a slow retreat as more Zorvac raiders arrived each week. Her small fleet was being picked apart piece by piece, and everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the colony fell. The worst part was how the aliens treated these battles. Lisa had intercepted enough Zorvac communications to understand that they saw these fights as training exercises. Young Zorvac warriors came to human space to practice their skills on easy targets. Experienced commanders used human colonies to test new weapons and tactics. To them, humanity was nothing more than a convenient punching bag that occasionally fought back. But what the Zorvax did not understand was that every battle taught humanity something new. Every destroyed ship provided data about alien weapons and defenses. Every tactical engagement revealed weaknesses in alien strategy. The humans were learning, adapting, and growing stronger with each defeat, even as their official fleet grew smaller. Dr. Amanda Walsh worked in a laboratory buried deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, where no alien sensors could detect what she was building. Project Looking Glass had been classified above the level of most military commanders, known only to a handful of scientists and engineers who understood that humanity's survival depended on keeping certain secrets hidden from the galaxy. Amanda had been monitoring every engagement between human and alien forces, studying the data that each battle provided. The Zorvax thought they understood human technology because they had fought human ships and won. What they did not realize was that every vessel they had encountered was either a converted civilian transport or a deliberately weakened military ship. The real human warships had never left their hidden construction facilities. For 3 years, humanity had been building a fleet, in secret while allowing the galaxy to believe they were weak and defeated. Admiral Roy Patterson received encrypted reports from deep space, listening posts that most of humanity did not even know existed. The Zorvax were massing their largest fleet in history, preparing for what they called the final cleansing of human space. Intelligence suggested over 200 alien warships would participate in the assault, including their massive dreadnoughts that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. Roy had spent 30 years in the human military, but nothing had prepared him for the responsibility he now carried. In his personal safe was a communication device that connected directly to Luna Base, where Amanda Walsh and her team waited for the signal to reveal humanity's greatest secret. The device had been silent for 3 years, but Roy knew that soon he would have to use it. Captain Ben Taylor commanded a small scout ship that officially carried supplies between human colonies. Unofficially, his vessel was equipped with the most advanced sensors humanity had ever built, and his real mission was to feed false information to Zorvac intelligence networks. For 2 years, Ben had been carefully planting fake documents, staged conversations, and fabricated technical specifications where alien spies could find them. Every piece of intelligence that Zorvac agents stole had been deliberately crafted to make humanity appear weaker than they actually were. Technical manuals described weapons that were deliberately inefficient. Strategic documents outlined defensive plans that contained obvious flaws. Personnel records suggested that human military forces were demoralized and on the verge of collapse. The aliens had built their entire understanding of human capabilities on lies that Ben and others like him had spent years constructing. The deception was so complete that even most humans believed their own species was losing the war. Only a few hundred people across all of human space knew the truth about Project Looking Glass and the real fleet that waited in hidden bases throughout the solar system. The rest of humanity fought bravely with inadequate weapons, never knowing that their apparent weakness was part of a larger strategy. Dr. Walsh checked her instruments again as reports came in from deep space monitors. The Zorvac Armada was almost ready to move, and soon humanity would face its greatest test. Either the deception would work and the real human fleet would catch the aliens completely unprepared, or humanity would face extinction at the hands of an enemy that outnumbered them by thousands to one. Amanda thought about the young soldiers like Jake Morrison and Lisa Carter who had fought so bravely with inferior equipment, never knowing that their sacrifices were buying time for humanity to prepare its real response. Soon they would learn that every defeat had been carefully planned, every retreat had been strategic, and every loss had served a greater purpose. The time for deception was almost over, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity was truly capable of when they stopped pretending to be weak. The battle that the Zorvacs had expected to last mere minutes stretched into hours as their overwhelming numerical advantage became meaningless against an enemy that operated according to rules they did not understand. For every human ship they managed to destroy through concentrated fire from multiple vessels, 3 Zorvac warships were eliminated by weapons that seemed to ignore the basic principles of space combat. Warlord Thexvar watched his tactical display with growing horror as ship after ship in his armada went dark, their life signs disappearing as human forces struck from impossible angles with technology that his scientists would have dismissed as fantasy. The humans were not simply winning the battle, They were rewriting the fundamental assumptions about how warfare could be conducted in space. Commander Lisa Grant guided her experimental fighter Wraith through the chaos of battle, demonstrating capabilities that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about single-pilot combat craft. Her ship could phase between dimensions at will, allowing her to appear inside enemy vessels, deliver devastating attacks from within their defensive perimeters, and vanish again before their weapons could track her movement. The Zorvac cruiser Dominator found itself under attack from an enemy that materialized directly on its bridge, bypassing shields and armor as if they did not exist. Lisa's fighter delivered a quantum virus directly into the ship's main computer core, a program that turned the vessel's own systems against the crew as life support failed, weapons misfired, and the artificial gravity began fluctuating wildly. The Kythera Collective observation posts throughout the sector transmitted increasingly frantic reports, as their analysts realized that humanity had somehow leapfrogged millions of years of normal technological development. Captain Eric Stone broadcast on all frequencies, his message reaching every corner of the galaxy as he delivered an explanation that would forever change how alien civilizations viewed the young species they had dismissed as primitive. The human message was simple and direct, delivered in perfect translations to every known galactic language simultaneously. Humanity thanked the galaxy for teaching them that the universe was hostile, acknowledged the valuable lessons they had learned from 3 years of apparent defeat, and politely informed every listening civilization that the educational period was now over. Colonel Maya Patel led her enhanced Marines through the corridors of captured Zorvac vessels, her soldiers moving with speed and precision that seemed impossible for biological creatures. The genetic and cybernetic augmentations that her troops carried pushed human physical capabilities beyond anything the galaxy had seen, creating soldiers who could think faster, react quicker, and adapt to alien environments with efficiency that spoke of years of careful enhancement. The Zorvac warriors, who had conquered 17 civilizations, found themselves facing opponents who fought like living weapons, moving through their ships as if they had been designed specifically for this kind of combat. The human Marines did not simply overpower their enemies. They anticipated every move, countered every tactic, and adapted to alien technology as if they had been using it for centuries. Dr. Patrick Lewis monitored the psychic battlefield from his command center aboard the research vessel Newton, watching as the Veltar Empire's greatest weapon turned against them with amplified force. The neural implants that his team had developed over 5 years of secret research transformed human minds into psychic mirrors that reflected any mental attack back at its source with devastating efficiency. The Veltar psychics who attempted to influence human thoughts found their own minds invaded by defensive systems that had been specifically designed to counter their abilities. The aliens who had dominated other species, through mental control, discovered that humans could not only resist their influence but could trace psychic attacks back to their sources and deliver counterstrikes that left Veltar commanders unconscious or worse. Admiral Susan Cross opened communications to the entire galaxy as Zorvac ships began retreating in disorder, their formation collapsing as vessel after vessel fell to human weapons that operated on principles the aliens could not comprehend. Her message was broadcast on every frequency, transmitted to every known civilization, and recorded by every intelligence service that monitored galactic communications. The Admiral's words were carefully chosen to mark the end of one era and the beginning of another. Earth was no longer accepting applications for conquest from any species that thought humans would make easy targets. Instead, humanity was now recruiting partners for peaceful exploration of the galaxy, offering cooperation to those who chose friendship and promising swift retribution to those who preferred hostility. Captain Ben Taylor monitored the communication networks as news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy at faster than light speeds, carried by quantum communicators and psychic relay networks that connected every major civilization. The carefully constructed deception that had fooled the galaxy for 3 years was finally revealed as reports reached every corner of known space about humanity's true capabilities. The false intelligence network that Ben had spent 2 years building was exposed as the elaborate fiction it had always been, but its purpose had been served completely. Every alien intelligence service now realized that their understanding of human technology had been based on lies, that their assessment of human military strength had been deliberately fabricated, and that their confidence in victory had been carefully cultivated to ensure they would face humanity's real fleet unprepared. Dr. Amanda Walsh received status reports from human vessels throughout the battle zone as her technology performed exactly as the simulations had predicted. Project Looking Glass had succeeded beyond her most optimistic projections, demonstrating that humanity's approach to rapid technological development could produce results that seemed impossible to species that had stagnated for millions of years. The quantum computers hidden beneath Luna's surface had calculated every possible outcome of this engagement. But even Amanda was surprised by how completely the human fleet dominated their opponents. The Zorvacs had not simply been defeated, they had been utterly outclassed by technology and tactics that redefined what was possible in galactic warfare. As the last Zorvac vessels fled toward the edge of the system, their retreat covered by desperate rearguard actions that accomplished nothing except to demonstrate how completely they had been outmatched. The galaxy began to understand that a new power had emerged among the stars, one that would reshape the balance of civilization throughout the known universe. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler's Edge, the galaxy had been fundamentally transformed in ways that no civilization had experienced in millions of years. The established order that had governed interstellar relations for countless generations had been shattered by a species that most galactic powers had dismissed as primitive only months before. The Zorvac hegemony, their once mighty fleet reduced to scattered survivors, had formally surrendered and requested peace negotiations with terms that would have been unthinkable before humanity revealed their true capabilities. Ambassador Nathan Young stood before the Galactic Council in a chamber that had echoed with debates about dividing human territory just months earlier. The same assembly that had spent years discussing how to manage the inevitable extinction of humanity now focused on a single overwhelming question: how to avoid becoming enemies of the species that had redefined what was possible in galactic warfare. The transformation in alien attitudes toward humanity was so complete that it seemed almost surreal. Representatives who had once spoken of humans as convenient sources of raw materials and slave labor now competed with each other to offer trade agreements, technology exchanges, and mutual defense treaties. The Cathara Collective had dispatched their finest diplomats to negotiate partnerships with human scientists, while the Veltar Empire requested access to human research on psychic defense systems. Captain Dana Sullivan commanded the first joint exploration vessel in galactic history, a ship crewed by volunteers from every major species who were eager to learn from the civilization they had so catastrophically underestimated. Her crew included former Zorvac warriors who now served alongside human officers, Cathara scientists who worked to understand human technological development, and Veltar psychics who studied the neural implants that had turned their greatest weapons against them. The exploration ship Endeavour represented everything that had changed about galactic civilization since humanity's revelation. Species that had been enemies for millennia now worked together under human leadership, united by their shared realization that cooperation with humanity offered opportunities that conquest never could. The ship's mission was to explore beyond the galactic rim, venturing into regions of space that had been considered too dangerous for any single species to investigate alone. Dr. Angela Foster stood before a gathering of the galaxy's greatest scientists and revealed the secret that had enabled humanity's impossible advancement. The truth was simpler than the assembled aliens had imagined, but also more profound in its implications for how technological development could be approached by species willing to abandon traditional methods. Humanity had not developed miraculous technology overnight through some revolutionary breakthrough or alien assistance. Instead, they had applied their species' greatest strength, the ability to learn, adapt, and improve at a rate that made other civilizations deeply uncomfortable. While the galaxy had rested on millions of years of technological stagnation, humanity had compressed centuries of normal development into just 3 years of intense focus and unlimited resources. The key had been humanity's willingness to question every assumption, challenge every accepted limitation, and pursue research directions that other species considered impossible or impractical. While alien scientists spent decades debating the theoretical possibility of dimensional shielding, human engineers had simply built working prototypes and refined them through practical testing. Where galactic civilization saw insurmountable barriers, humanity saw interesting puzzles to solve. Admiral Susan Cross established the protocols that would govern human interaction with the galaxy for generations to come. The Sol Defense Accords created a framework that divided all galactic civilizations into two simple categories. Those who chose peaceful cooperation would find humanity to be their greatest allies, eager to share knowledge and explore the universe together, while aggressive species would discover that the days of bullying younger civilizations were permanently over. The Accords were not a treaty in the traditional sense, but rather a unilateral declaration of human policy, backed by the undeniable demonstration of their military capabilities. No alien government had been asked to sign or agree to the terms, because humanity was not requesting permission or seeking approval for their new role in galactic affairs. They were simply informing the universe how things would work from now on. Captain Alex Rivers commanded one of dozens of human vessels that now patrolled the galaxy, carrying both advanced weapons and diplomatic credentials, as they established humanity's presence throughout known space. His ship, the Retribution, had become a symbol of the new order, fast enough to reach any conflict within days, powerful enough to end any war within hours, and crewed by officers trained to prefer negotiation over combat whenever possible. The human patrol fleet served multiple purposes beyond simple military presence. They protected weaker species from aggressive neighbors, mediated disputes between civilizations that had been fighting for centuries, and demonstrated human technology to potential allies, while keeping the most advanced systems carefully hidden. Every alien government understood that what they could see of human capabilities was only a small fraction of what humanity actually possessed. Jake Morrison, the same officer who had attempted first contact with the Zorvax 3 years earlier, now served as humanity's chief liaison with former enemy species. His ship had been destroyed in one of the early engagements that the aliens had thought were victories, but Jake had survived to see humanity's true response to galactic hostility. He took particular satisfaction in negotiating surrender terms with Zorvac commanders who remembered him from those first encounters. The irony was not lost on anyone involved that the species which had seemed weakest had proven strongest, that the civilization which had appeared most vulnerable had demonstrated the greatest capacity for rapid adaptation and overwhelming response. The galaxy's fatal miscalculation had been assuming that a young species meant a weak species, when in reality humanity's youth had been their greatest advantage. As human ships spread throughout the galaxy, establishing bases, forming alliances, and exploring regions that had been abandoned as too dangerous, one message echoed across every inhabited world. Humanity had not simply survived their violent introduction to galactic civilization, they had redefined what it meant to be an apex species in an infinite universe, where the only constant was change, and the only certainty was that those who could adapt fastest would inherit the stars.